All right, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? It's 35 after. Thanks everybody for coming. Just FYI, I'm trying something where I'm going to record this on a Google Hangouts on air so we can post it later if people don't have a chance to be here. So keep that in mind as you make comments, that your voice may be captured for posterity. If you have any concerns later, let me know and we could potentially edit it out. So my name is Paul Grodevant. I think I know just about everybody here, and I wanted to give our team an opportunity to talk to you guys about what's been going on with the UT Drupal Kit since November. I thought what we could run through today is just a recap of where the Drupal Kit has been since it started. Talk about what adoption has looked like since the big 2.0 launch in November, which is when we made the big change with the 40 acres theme and the page builder module. Talk about what changed between the 2.0 release in November and the 2.1 release that's been out since January. And we have already got a pretty good idea of what's going to be available in a 2.2 release that's looking like probably late this month or early next month. Let's talk about that. And since some of you guys, if you've already built some sites using 2.0, if you haven't already updated to 2.1, you might be thinking about how you're going to update your site. So I wanted to talk about what we're recommending as some best practices for doing that. And please feel free to stop me at any point if you have questions. So just a quick run through of the Drupal Kit's release history. I didn't really realize that we had passed the 1-year anniversary of the Drupal Kit at the end of January. I think as a lot of you know, the 1.0 through 1.4 releases were really not widely adopted by campus users, and that was to be expected because we didn't really include anything in there that was of any particular value other than the UT login module. There was no theme. There was no special page building tools or anything like that, but we were updating it with Drupal core updates and contrib module updates. And then it was November of last year when 2.0 came out, which was the first release with the 40 acres theme and page builder module, which we're starting to see people release an increasing number of sites using that today. On January 22nd, we had the 2.1 release, and I'll talk about what that encompassed in a minute. And again, we're thinking 2.2 should be ready to go late this month or early next month. This is just a quick graph to give us a sense of what adoption has looked like. I hope everybody knows, and if not, there's a link. I'll send these slides out later. There's a link here to the information about the UTexas Beacon module, which is something we want to make sure everybody understands is included in the UT Drupal Kit, is a module that just sends us, our team, a daily ping back, basically saying, hi, I'm a Drupal Kit site and I'm alive. It's been in there since version 2. So this chart is showing us how many emails we've been getting from Drupal Kit sites since the launch in November. And today we're up a little over 50 per day on average. That does include some local development sites, which kind of explains the downward spikes at a few points. Like if Henry's got a local development site on his laptop, but he doesn't use it one day, then the email's not going to get sent that day. Multiply that across the number of developers who are using the Drupal Kit, and we could see a variation some days of like as many as 5 fewer than the day previous because of that, generally. It also includes non-production environments. So if somebody's got, a lot of the sites that we build, we have 2 or 3 environments for one site, and each one of those environments is going to send a ping back. It would also include sites that are in progress but not live yet. So some of you folks are building sites and we see them, but we know that you're not ready to have them publicly visible. So I send emails occasionally to folks saying, hey, I see you've got this site, it looks done, is it really done? So that we can add it to our list. But that's, that's pretty exciting data, I think. The trend line looks really good for the adoption over 3 months. This is the list of sites that we know about that are live using the 2.0 branch of the Drupal Kit right now. So the President's Office, the Provost's Office, University Communications. Henry launched all those in very short order after we launched in November. College of Ed has launched recently, Explore UT, You Teach Computer Science, Office of the Registrar, a new one I just found today, the AP Summer Institutes from Center for Teaching and Learning. Those last two, the Graduate School and Orientation, are actually sort of early prototypes of what managed CMS will look like. Those are sites built by non-technical users where we are managing their code base for them in the same exact way that we're going to manage sites on the managed CMS service next year. But since managed CMS is basically built off the Drupal Kit, it still has the beacon module, we still see the same data, and they look exactly like a Drupal Kit site would look. So I just want to run through some screenshots real quick to kind of give everybody a sense of the variety of design work that we're seeing based on the page builder tools. There's the President's site. That's the Provost site. University Communications. I love that hero image. It's very distinctive. This is the College of Ed. You can kind of tell College of Ed did something very different with the header, the University brand bar, as well as the menu. So they did some pretty interesting theme customization. There's Explore UT, which is a nice example showing a logo, a site logo that's not using the new academic identity. This is the You Teach Computer Science site, which is one of my favorites because it looks nothing like any of the others. So that's a cool example from David. Here's Office of the Registrar, which launched last week. Yay, Jana. And here's that new AP Summer Institutes. And then here's the last two are the managed CMS examples, is the grad school and new student services. But as you can see, they look just like you would expect them to look. They should even more so look just like you would expect them to look because managed CMS doesn't really offer the opportunity to customize in any appreciable way. So, any questions or comments about adoption and the sites that people are seeing out there? I'm really excited. I think it's cool work. It's cool to see the vision coming together the way we hoped it would. So, a review of what changed in 2.1 of the Drupal Kit? Yes?
Just right quick.
Yes?
Your new student services is fall.
Thank you. Yes, so changes in the 2.1 version of the kit. We had a blog post about this on the Drupal services blog a couple weeks ago, but in case you didn't get a chance to see that, there's some CSS fixes, some things that we didn't catch in the initial version. There was one change that's pretty noticeable that was a decision that wasn't made until after the 2.0 launch, which is the scrolling behavior of the university brand bar in the mobile breakpoints, where the brand bar actually scrolls off the screen, and then the white header with your site logo stays fixed at the top of the screen after that point. So that way the brand bar doesn't kind of take up valuable real estate on the screen as the user is scrolling through, but they do see it when they first load it. I would demo that for you, but the Google Hangout thing would go crazy. But there's a little screenshot on that blog post, and I think if you look at, well, actually I don't know which sites have updated yet to have that, so I'm not sure I could point at one that would act that way yet. I guess the news, UT News does that, right? If you look at the UT News site, its mobile menu works that way now. We rolled in a new little feature in the Starter Kit subtheme, which is the ability to just use checkboxes to enable some of the foundation framework elements that were not included by default in the original version of the theme. So people have asked about accordions and tabs and sliders and a few of the others. Yeah, those are the ones most people ask about. So in the theme settings for Starter Kit, we added just a set of checkboxes you could use to turn on the JavaScript and CSS to enable those elements. And then if you use the markup that Foundation tells you to use for those elements in your HTML, like switch to a full HTML and go into the source view, you can start adding those elements to your pages. We added a tags taxonomy vocabulary. We updated the version of the table saw library. We made it so that in the layout editor for Page Builder now you can place regular, just standard Drupal blocks as opposed to just view blocks and the widgets that are in the Page Builder. We enabled the global redirect module by default when you do a clean install. That's a good opportunity to note a thing about the Drupal kit. When we make changes like that, when we say we've enabled global redirect by default, that does not mean that if you've already built a site using 2.0, that when you update to 2.1, we're going to enable the global redirect module for you. Our philosophy is that we're treating this like any other Drupal distribution. The install profile does things when you first install a site. And then you, as the site owner, expect that we will not mess with your stuff after you've installed the site, because you may not want the global redirect module on. So if we had had it in there to begin with, as a default module to be enabled, you might have turned it off. You wouldn't appreciate it very much if we then, in a subsequent update, turned the module back on. That is not the philosophy of the UT Drupal kit. That will be the philosophy of managed CMS, because that's a standardized service where customers aren't supposed to have access to like what modules are enabled and what modules are not. So when I say we've enabled the global redirect module, that's a change in the install profile that will affect new installs made with version 2.1 or later. When you update to 2.1, it will not affect you.
Quick question on the managed CMS. Are they going to have the option for full HTML and like blocks and stuff?
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Yeah. We're working on some stuff with like an elevated role that will be able to use some additional tags, but we kind of have direction from the Information Security Office to not make everything available to all users by default in a service that's supposed to be kind of that tightly managed.
Mm-hmm.
But we're working on solutions because we know that people...
Well, specific site owners. Like let's say you've got 8 editors, but one person...
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be role-based.
Okay.
But it may not be exactly what you're saying. It may not be you get to use the full HTML text format, because we don't necessarily want to get in the scenario where somebody comes in and edits a page and changes the text format to a text format that only they have permission to use, and then another editor comes in to edit that same page, and they're locked out of that field because of the text format that it's in. So we're working on a solution to that involves maybe having that content that's in a more permissive text format in a block and being able to place that block in the page.
Yeah.
And then the last thing was some extra options for our Google Tag Manager module, which was one of the custom modules that originally came from Springbox, to like restrict or allow whether the Google Tag Manager tracker gets added on authenticated users or on admin pages, that kind of thing. Similar to what was already on the Google Analytics module, I think. So for 2.2, what we're looking at right now is there's a 7.42 version of Drupal core. That's a bug fix update, not a security update. So we're not rushing it out the door, but that will be in 2.2 release. We are adding a new input filter that you would have the choice to add to one of your text formats. So again, this goes back to the, is your site in action already, or are you doing a new site install? I believe we're making, guys, we're making that input filter part of the regular filtered HTML by default, right? Do we add the Qualtrics input filter to the filtered HTML?
That's correct.
Yes.
Yes. So a new site install would have this, and I'll tell you what it does in a second, but a new site install would have this Qualtrics input filter as part of its filtered HTML text format. An old site install will not. So you, as the site owner of an older site install, if you want to enable this new Qualtrics input filter, you just go edit your text format to add that filter into the stack of filters for your filtered HTML text format. We're not going to modify people's text formats after the site is already up and running, because again, you might have made decisions about what filters you want in your text format, and it's not our job to second guess those decisions or rearrange your filter order. We could break your site really easily if we did stuff like that. What this filter does is it's going to allow a simple sort of shortcode syntax for embedding a Qualtrics survey in a page, because we are highly encouraging people to use Qualtrics instead of like the Drupal web form module or any other type of Drupal forms solution. You can build your form in Qualtrics, and then with a very simple kind of shortcode syntax, you can embed that form in your page, and this filter basically transforms that into the iframe that displays the form in the page for you. So where we can, we're looking for ways to give more power to people within the parameters of the filtered HTML text format, and this is one of the ways we can do that. And then the last item is changes to the starter kit theme, which I'm going to get into in a little more detail now unless anybody has any other questions. Okay. So we've learned a few things about being the stewards of a base theme with a starter kit sub-theme since November. There was one tiny change in the 2.1 version where we added a checkbox to the theme settings to allow you to turn your search form off or on with a simple radio button setting in the theme settings. The way that's implemented in the theme, if you started with 2.0 and you created a sub-theme off of Starter Kit in 2.0, you're not going to see that new change, because we gave you a Starter Kit sub-theme that had all the theme templates in it, and it also had its own hook form alter implementation for the theme settings form. And so it's kind of Drupal's base theme, sub-theme inheritance model is very flexible in that you can normally do a sub-theme and choose to just inherit as much as you want from the base theme, and then start overriding the little bits and pieces that you want to change. And our initial sub-theme kind of put you in a position where you were overriding a lot of those things already, whether you needed to or not. So by including all the page templates and all the partial templates for the header and the footer, your sub-theme is not going to see changes in the upstream base theme as it evolves. So we kind of had to decide, do we stay with that approach and just document really heavily for everybody, like, hey, if you have a sub-theme, then here are the things you need to change in your sub-theme to keep up with the changes we've made in the base theme. And the same would be true for the theme settings. Like if we make a change to the theme settings form, you would need to implement those same changes to your theme settings form. Or
could we make it so that you could strip a lot of that stuff out of your subtheme and not worry about it unless you're trying to customize those pieces? So we had to make some structural changes to the subtheme, but starting with 2.2, when you make a new subtheme, it will have no templates. So you would only copy over the templates that you want to override from 40 acres. Otherwise, you've got no templates in your subtheme, and you just inherit them all from 40 acres. The same will be true for the theme settings form alter function. We're going to take that out of the 2.2 subtheme, and that way, as we make changes in the theme settings in 40 acres, you will see those changes in the theme settings in the subtheme. Another good example of that is these checkboxes for the optional foundation elements. The way it is right now, if we added those checkboxes to the theme setting form in 40 acres, you wouldn't see them in your subtheme because you've got your own theme settings override. So what we're going to say for folks who built a starter kit-based subtheme from version 2.0 or 2.1 is you're probably going to want to go back and just remove all the page templates from your theme except for any that you modified. Hopefully you remember if you've modified any of them. If you don't, then you could easily do it between the files in the 40 acres theme and the files in your theme. We also are saying you probably want to consider just deleting themesettings.php altogether, because all that has in it is a theme settings, an implementation of quick form system theme settings alter that is redundant to the one in 40 acres. And unless you're trying to change it, you don't need it. So you could leave it if you are trying to change it. You could leave an empty implementation of it if you want to reserve the right to change it in the future, or you could just delete that entire file. So I know that's kind of confusing, and we'll have more documentation about that, but does anybody have any questions right now? Does it make sense to the people who it matters to, the people who have started? Like Henry, I know this probably affects you on 3 or 4 sites at least.
Yeah.
Okay. It should make things easier going forward. Yeah, so this was just an example of something that's changed in a template since 2.0 that you wouldn't be getting unless we had made this decision and you got rid of your template files, is the conditional logic for the search form display. And then examples of the things that have changed in the theme settings form that, again, you wouldn't be getting in your subtheme. So the next thing I just wanted to quickly touch on, and I like to hammer this home a lot because I think it's probably one of the things that's most different for people even who have fairly extensive Drupal experience who are using the Drupal Kit, is how to update it. We are following the sort of standard model for a Drupal distribution with the Drupal Kit. It's an install profile, and as such, everything that we're giving you is not in Cites All Modules or Cites All Themes when you download the kit. It's in the Profiles directory. And I could be wrong. I think most people never even look in the Profiles directory of a Drupal core download because they just know, there's the standard installation profile and the minimal installation profile, and they don't even probably know that those are what those things are called. They just know there's 2 options when you first bring up the Drupal installer. But we've added our own installation profile. We've actually made it so that when you install the Drupal Kit the first time, you don't even see standard and minimal as choices. It just selects the uTexas profile by default. And then all of the associated module code, theme code, The installation profile, which sets up your text formats and your user roles and everything like that, that's all in the profiles directory. And when you want to update Drupal core, we're going to give you Drupal core as part of a new version of the Drupal kit. So everything's in the kit that you need, except for any contrib modules that you want to add that aren't in the kit, and any themes that you want to add that aren't in the kit. Such as if you create a subtheme. Your subtheme should go in Sites All Themes, or Sites Default Themes, whichever you prefer. But everything else, all the core, all the contrib that comes with the Drupal kit, all the custom modules we wrote, should be updated by updating your whole Drupal kit installation rather than doing piecemeal updates from Drupal.org. So how is the best way to accomplish this? So you've created a site, you've got a bunch of code up on UT Web or whatever, and your site is live, and we say, hey, there's a new version of the Drupal kit, you should update your site. You can't use some of the practices you might be used to for doing updates. Like you can't do a drush up for Drupal core or contrib. We're telling you not to. So what do? My top choice would be that you have your whole site's code base in some kind of version control system. Preferably Git. Subversion would work too. And that you're preferably using some sort of local development workflow where on your laptop or your desktop computer you have a copy of your site's code base that is not your live site, so that you could just take our kit update, take your local copy of the site that's in version control, delete everything except the sites directory. Two possible exceptions: if you've modified htaccess or robots text, you might want to hang on to those. But just delete everything except your sites directory, and then shovel everything from our kit update, except the sites directory, into there, and commit those changes. That's really while there are some presuppositions to being able to do that that may not seem easy, I think this is the easiest way and safest way to do it. Because that way you manage all the changing of your code base in a non-production environment. It's not going to hurt anybody. Then you commit those changes. Preferably you test them. You then push them to a test server, test instance on UT Web, something like that. And then once you're assured that everything is going to work well, you push them to production. A second strategy is maybe you're just doing everything on UT Web. You've got multiple environments set up on UT Web, I hope, and no version control, but you use an SFTP client, like FileZilla or something like that. So it could be the same deal. Go to your dev environment, just delete everything except the sites directory, and then upload everything that we distributed in the new copy of the Drupal kit. Test it out, see how it goes. If it works good, do the same thing in your second environment, whatever it is, test, qual, whatever you call it. If that goes good, then you're probably going to do it in your production environment. The downside there is going to be there's no way to do that without any downtime, because you're going to delete all the files in your site for some period of time in order to do this update. I'm not recommending this method necessarily. I'm just sort of throwing out ideas of how you can do it. Trying to think about that scenario, we've come up with a third option, which is to create a patch file. So if you're familiar with using the Unix diff command, you can compare two files or two sets of files and generate a diff of all the changes on every line between those two files or those sets of files. You can output those changes to a file, call it a patch file, and then you can use a different Unix command called patch to actually apply those changes to a set of files. What we've done is we've created a patch file that captures all the differences between Drupal Kit 2.0 and 2.1. So if you have a 2.0 code base, you can use this patch file to, in one command, update all the files that are different between 2.0 and 2.1. I would never recommend that you try this in your production environment without doing it either on a local, well, you can't do it on a local because we've got the patch files are on UTWeb. Do it in a different environment on UTWeb first before trying that in your production environment. And in all of these scenarios, you would absolutely have backed up all your files and your database before you do any of this. There's documentation on the patch file method specifically. I'll send out the slides so you can follow this link. It's on the Drupal Kit wiki. There's documentation on doing it the other way as well. But you know, this is kind of one of those things where people have to do what works for them for whatever their workflow is. We can't control people's workflow. I can tell you some worst practices for trying to update a site. And again, that would be trying to update Drupal core independently of the distribution, unless it's like a critical security vulnerability. And kind of like, does everyone remember Drupalgeddon last year, where it was like, update your site in the next 6 hours or it's hacked for sure kind of thing? If that ever happens again, we will definitely be providing guidance about what people should do, but that might be a scenario where you have to update Drupal core independently, and then we'll figure out how to catch up afterwards. Updating contrib modules independently of the Drupal Kit distribution, especially by putting newer versions or different versions of the same module in sites all modules. If you've got the same module in two different places in your code base, like profiles view Texas modules and sites all modules, you are setting yourself up for some pain, like unpredictable, hard to troubleshoot kind of pain. So please don't do that. And don't put anything of your own in the profiles view Texas directory. Don't put your own theme in there. Don't put your own contrib modules or your own custom modules in there. Anything you're adding to the site should go in sites all modules or sites all themes or sites default, whichever you prefer. Any questions on that? Okay. So, to reiterate, the only files or directories that you should customize or add files to in a UT Drupal Kit distribution are htaccess. You may have your own rewrite rules or redirects or whatnot. Robots.txt if you're doing your own spider control. You know. And in both of those cases, you might want to check to see if the htaccess file in a new version has changed. Like Drupal does update the stock htaccess file sometimes. And this is not just a Drupal Kit issue. This is for anybody who's like versioning their code base. If you've made changes to htaccess and then there's an update to the htaccess file in Drupal core, you need to figure out how to reconcile those somehow. And that is the case in 7.42. There is like a one-line change in the htaccess file. And then the sites directory.
Well, I had a quick question.
It's up to you whether it's sites default or sites all, or if you're using multi-site, maybe you have sites / something else. That's totally up to the discretion of the developer. So, I have one more thing I want to share. It's not in the original agenda, but I think is pretty exciting. For those of you who've been around and looking at the template work from Springbox ever since it was delivered almost a year and a half ago, one of the things that they included in their deliverables were some, I call them like supplemental use case specific templates for things like faculty profiles, events, class schedules, a few other things like that. And what we have been saying for quite a while is that the way we would deliver these in the future was that they would be included in Managed CMS for users of that system, and that we will provide them as downloadable feature modules for the UT Drupal Kit. Again, this is a philosophical thing about how we provide the Drupal Kit to you guys and how you use it. We could include those feature modules in the Drupal Kit, but then that gets a little weird if you go and customize those features, and then we make changes to those features in the future and give them to you in a new version of the kit. You have an overridden feature, and then we're providing a new version of that feature, and I just don't want to worry about what's going to happen when matter and antimatter meet like that. So what we thought is it's better to let you have those features, and then you can do whatever you want with them with no fear that we will ever automatically deliver something to you that's going to override the work that you've done. If you would like to take a look at a future version of the feature and see what we've changed and maybe incorporate that into your feature, or if you didn't customize your feature and you just want to take our new version of it wholesale, great. But we're never going to deliver a new version of one of these features as part of the UT Drupal Kit distribution package. They'll always be sort of separate pieces.
Is it going to be in like a Git, like a Bitbucket style account or something, where we can submit pull requests for, hey, I put together a features module?
For now, it's just going to be like tarballs.
Okay.
And so we can talk about, how to submit new requests or new, if you want to come up with one on your own and offer it up to the community, we can talk about that. Because we have the ones that we know we're going to do, but I think there's a lot of room for other ones in the future. So this is the original design concept from Springbox for a faculty profile. And separately, this is what they call the About Us page. Henry's built a number of pages that look similar to this using widgets that are already available in the Drupal kit, like you kind of munge together some promo units and promo lists and things in a really creative way to get a similar effect. We wanted to essentially offer a way to build these two types of pages in a native way, as opposed to having to take things that weren't intended to be used for this because they look right, okay? And while we were going down that road, we also said, well, these are essentially, thumbnails of profiles, and this is a profile. They called it a faculty profile. We don't have to think of it as a faculty profile. It could be a profile of anybody. So what we're delivering, probably around the same time as 2.2, but again, not as part of the kit, will be something we're calling the team member feature. So it's one feature module. For those of you who aren't familiar with feature modules, it's really just like a Drupal module, a contrib module. You just have to be running the features module to use it. And if you're using the Drupal kit, you're already using the features module because we require it. So this is a profile page that has some specific fields for headshot, a name, a title, a bio, some links. And then this is the About Us page that you can build using that profile. And I'll show you in a sec what all the different components that kind of make the feature up, but quickly,
you see there's like, in this example, there's a leadership, faculty, and staff divisions. That's a taxonomy vocabulary that you get to set up the terms in. So you set up what you want these divisions to be, and then per division, you set up which style of profile display to use. So this one says in the leadership section, I want to show the large image, I forget what it's called, but this has a name, basically. It's like a view mode. I want to use the large view mode here, the small view mode here, and then just the name in that section. And then there's an admin page that allows you to is built on draggable views that lets you drag and drop the order of the people in each section, so that you're not, tied into alphabetical or something like that, because there's almost always some rule like the first person, the head of that group has to come first, regardless of alphabetical order, and then the rest of it should be in alphabetical order. So there's no automatic ordering. You just use draggable views to drag the names around. So what you're getting in this feature is a content type for the team member with a custom page template, a taxonomy vocabulary for the team member group, a new role for a team member editor. We've sort of got this pattern now of for every new content type, we add an editor role for that content type. So by default, out of the box, you've got standard page editor and landing page editor. If you turn this feature on, you'll have team member editor. Customizable view modes per group term, the admin page, and then that page itself, the About Us page, what that becomes is it's a view with a block display. And so you can use the page builder to just add that block to any page builder page. So you could actually create multiple pages that show that. Probably in most cases, people are just going to have one. So that seems like a more flexible option than having like a hard-coded page display view and having to figure out a way for people to change the URL for that page without having to have access to the Views UI. So this doesn't require any access to the Views UI. It only requires that you be able to edit the taxonomy terms to create your groups and then add the nodes for your team members, and then use that admin page to drag them around. So that's it. That's what we got. So again, the team member feature, we will have it somewhere for you to download in the next 2 to 4 weeks. I think, again, we'll target to get it available at the same time as the 2.2 Kit release. And everything else will be in the 2.2. Any questions, comments, wish list items?
For the kind of roles you'll have set up in managed CMS,
Mm-hmm.
would there be any possibility in the future to copycat those roles and like a page editor role, for instance?
Oh, because don't we give you those roles?
I think right now it's just administrator.
We could. It gets a little tricky because those essentially, to not have them be features that then get overridden the minute you change something about them, they have to be kind of hard coded into the install profile. And as I guess I recall, our thinking was that we didn't want to make too many assumptions about what Drupal Kit developers were going to want to do in terms of role management. But we could. I mean, we could add those, and then if you didn't want them, you could just delete them or not use them. As far as managed CMS goes, we're still in
contract negotiations with our cloud hosting vendor, and we still are hopeful for a June availability for that.
Mark says seem to be unmuted.
Oh, to be unmuted?
Can you guys hear me? Hello, hello?
Hold
Hello,
on,
hello?
it's been an adventure.
Testing, testing. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Testing, testing. Testing, testing.
Ah, there we go.
There we go. All right. Sure, Paul. There's just a question from the peanut gallery here. You should see it in the Google Hangout window. I can repeat it here. Hey, Paul. Not sure if you can read this, but I have a question. Is this theme and all components tested for accessibility per university guidelines?
Yes. Good question. So the answer is yes. The theme has been tested. We did not, until a couple weeks ago, have an ongoing scan of a site using the latest version of the theme happening, and now we do. So we now have like an automatic feedback loop for if there are any accessibility regressions or anything like that. But I mean, in just our base install with no modifications, at the moment is getting a 95, I think, in world space right out of the box. And I'm sorry, I can't recall what we got dinged for, but we'll take a look at that.
I had a quick question also, Paul. It's kind of a straw man question, but in a number of slides before, you were talking about how you shouldn't put anything in profiles utexis because that'll make it more difficult to update the Drupal kit. So the straw man question is, but what if somebody needs to hack Drupal core that's outside of profiles utexis in order to get something to work? How do they then update the UT Drupal kit based on that scenario?
How do you think they would?
Don't hack core. Every time you hack core.
Okay, I'm gonna just sidebar for a second, since it came up in the email last week with Mark's question about the favicon, and be upfront about the fact that there are some modules in the Drupal kit that are contrib modules that we have patched. I won't use the word hacked, but we have patched those modules in a few specific cases for some specific functionality reasons. You know, it often has to do with just interactions between, you know, the sets of modules that you're using together or whatever. Every time we do that, we make sure that that whatever we've changed is captured in a patch file and that it is saved in a specific place in our code base with a note about, you know, the fact that it's there and why it's there. And so it's transparently documented both to ourselves as the developers and to you, if you care to take a look, about what we have patched. I hope that what Mark's getting at with his question, and maybe I'll get it wrong, is that if you, for some reason, needed to hack core or even hack one of the modules in the profiles, that you would use the same approach, basically, that you would capture whatever change you made as a patch file, and that you would store that patch file in your code base so that when it came time to update, you could just do your update and then reapply that patch file to get your change back. This is a process that sounds kind of squirrely, but it is actually well documented on Drupal.org and other places because it's, you know, the first response is and should remain don't hack core, but the fact is that there just come times when you have to do that. So if you're going to do it, you should at least manage it in a rational way. Is that what you were hoping to hear, Mike?
Yeah, that's exactly spot on.
Okay. Anything else?
New pages look cool. Excited for them. The About Us and stuff. Those are.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I know, right? I had like exactly that templated out yesterday for the RTF team. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be, actually, I think I'm gonna have it still with me. Where I templated the, nope. Yeah, there it is. Where I templated out the idea of the photo and everything. And it's like, yeah, and then once I have it, I can actually drop that in the features module to move it between the 5 sites. I think it's hilarious that you think about that.
The other thing I'll say about the adoption is, I mean, there's a lot of sites I can't show you. I think there's at least 10 more sites that are well underway and look like they should be live very soon. So it'll be exciting to see those.
That's why I think it'd be cool to have a GitHub style or Bitbucket style features library to where, if he comes up with the greatest tool for student showcases for their content movies, he can output it, throw it to the library, and it, adds to movies.
So, there's a couple different ways to look at that. That was actually one of the goals of the Drupal Foundation project long ago in a galaxy far, far away, was to build an entire site to essentially act as a community Drupal features library. And I think in large part that was inspired by Zach Chandler at Stanford and some other folks in the Drupal higher ed community who built their own site. They called it the Drupal EDU Unconsortium or something like that. That was essentially supposed to be like an open, hey, we're all higher ed people, we're pragmatic and we move fast, and so let's just share things kind of deal. It may still be out there, I don't know, but it never really took off. There were a few features up there that you could download and kind of hack them up to do what you wanted to with them. But of course the problem with this approach is always like, who's actually going to take the time once they've built something to turn it into something shareable? I think a lot of people feel that there's a barrier to getting something in a condition that you feel comfortable giving it out to other people or whatever. And part of what they were trying to do was just send a message like, don't worry about it. Just, like Zach called it messy, hasty pluralism, right? Just get it out there and let people, find it and do what they want with it. And I'm supportive of that. I did not advocate for spending a huge amount of resources to build a whole custom community website to support that effort, because I don't think that's, we could have spent a year doing that and then we wouldn't have this, right? So we did this. We've got other tools. We've got, we have a wiki for this group, and nothing is stopping anybody from creating a page on that wiki and throwing up some zip files of features that they've created. I would love to see that happen. Your idea of a GitHub style thing for that may become very feasible in whatever number of months it is until the enterprise version of GitHub for UT is available. And once it is, then sure, have your own repo, put your feature in it, and put a link to the repo on that wiki, and let's all go to town and share stuff. All for it. I want to be smart about how much effort we as a central team dedicate to creating some, very elaborate resource for that might only actively be used by 5 to 10 people or something. Hopefully it'll be more than that over time. All right, well, it's 12:30. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you all.